event during the Global South-South Cooperation Expo. And this is a very good opportunity for UNECE, Economic and Social Commission for Europe, UNESCAP, the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, and ESCWA, Economic and Social Commission for West Asia, to jointly organize this event on overcoming challenges and exploring opportunities for sustainable energy transition through South-South cooperation. So this is on the sideline of this Global Expo. The South-South cooperation is always a very efficient and important tool for energy transition, in particular for these three regions we work together. So as you know, the main objective of this event is to review existing experiences of countries in the Global South in the post-COVID-19 recovery in the energy sector, and the role of South-South economic cooperation to play a role in the sustainable energy transition. So we are very glad to have the Deputy Executive Secretaries from three regional commissions to start with the opening remarks, and then there's a panel discussion to focus on the challenges for sustainable energy transition and the opportunities through South-South cooperation. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Kaveh Zahedi, the Deputy Executive Secretary from United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, to have the opening remarks. Kaveh, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hongpeng, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. I'm really very pleased to join this event together with, as Hongpeng said, the Deputy Executive Secretary of ESCWA, Mr. Munir Tabet, and also our dear colleague Oleg, the regional advisor from UNECE, who will represent Dimitri as well. I also want to extend a warm welcome to, obviously, the participants we have here and online who are joining us for this side event. I think that here in Asia Pacific, as countries experience disasters of a magnitude that has never been seen before, as we're just witnessing, for example, in Pakistan or indeed in China, and where 9 out of every 10 people are breathing air that is hazardous to health, we are really very, very keenly aware that the energy transition is one of the most important shifts that humanity must make. The wholesale exploitation of fossil fuels is quite simply pushing the global climate system past its safe limits and ever closer to disastrous climate tipping points. And we saw an incredible report from the Potsdam Institute on some of those tipping points just last week. The reality is that few countries in our region are untouched by the energy crisis, or more precisely, by the fossil fuel crisis that has brought unpredictability of supply, increasing costs, and economic instability. The response to this crisis, however, is quite clear. We must accelerate the transition to clean, emission-free, efficient, universally accessible, and affordable energy. If we are looking to create decent jobs, if we are looking to create new sources of economic growth and greater resilience in our economies, the pathway out of crisis is through clean energy. The Asia-Pacific region must play a decisive role in this energy transition. It is a major population center of the world and now responsible for half of the global energy consumed annually and nearly 60% of fuel-related carbon emissions. And the trajectory is unfortunately upwards. It's rising. But the region is more than just a consumer of energy. It is so often a source of the best innovations in technology, business models, and ideas for clean energy. Many countries in this region, from China to India to Vietnam and others, have shown the world how they can scale up clean energy and unlock its benefits, not just to address climate change, but to create new jobs and economic growth while bolstering their energy security. The sustainable energy landscape is changing fast and pushing leaders to re-envision the energy sector. Many Asia-Pacific countries have set in place targets to reach net zero emissions by the middle of the century or just after. More countries are emerging as renewable energy leaders. Promising developments can be seen in areas like green hydrogen, electric mobility, and cross-border renewable energy mega projects. Having said that, a candid analysis of the region offers maybe a little more sobering picture. Collectively, we are not on track to reach SDG 7 targets of energy efficiency, of renewable energy, or clean cooking. Energy intensity in our region is higher, and the share of modern renewable energy is much lower when compared to other regions. We have the largest population without access to clean cooking fuels at around 1.3 billion people. And the long horizon planning for a sustainable energy transition and net zero needs to be matched by adequate short and medium term actions if these targets are to be more than simply aspirational. And the scale and speed of the transition needed means that countries must inspire and equip each other with the technologies, with the know-how, with the policies and finance needed across the region and indeed worldwide. For our part, here at ESCAP, we're assisting countries in reaching the targets of SDG 7 and doing so in a way that supports other SDGs, particularly, of course, SDG 13 on climate action. Our work rests basically on three pillars: the research and analysis, the intergovernmental coordination, and of course, the in-country technical assistance and capacity building. In these efforts, South-South cooperation, which is the business of this big conference and this big encounter this week at ESCAP, is absolutely indispensable. Tapping into experiences and lessons learned from developing countries facing similar challenges is essential to scaling up successes and to some degree to avoiding some of the policy pitfalls. The Committee on Energy and the ministerial level Asian and Pacific Energy Forum that we support allow developing countries to work together to progress towards a regional sustainable energy agenda on priorities such as closing the gap on SDG 7 and agreeing on a long-term plan to connect the region's power grids to integrate more renewable energy and electricity. Enhancing the human capacity of energy policymakers and practitioners across the region would not be possible without the pool of experts from countries in the global south. Ladies and gentlemen, the sustainable energy transition has indeed begun, and no country can afford to be left behind relying on the brown economy of the past. So I look forward to our discussions, which I hope will shed light on exactly how we can overcome some of the many challenges that remain and capitalize on the endless opportunities for a renewable energy transition that matches the climate emergency that our member states are facing. Thank you very much, and back to you, Hong Kong.
Thank you, Kavi, for the very inspiring opening remarks, especially give the priorities, how the regional cooperation and also the areas through South-South cooperation on energy transition. And also from Asia Pacific's point of view, how this regional cooperation can support the global to achieve the SDGs, especially focus on SDG 7 and SDG 13. Thank you very much, Kavi. I'd like to invite Mr. Munir Tabet the Deputy Executive Secretary from United Nations Economic and Social Commission for West Asia. Mr. Tabet, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. We are pleased to be joining efforts with other regional commissions and other partners to highlight once more the criticality of South-South cooperation on sustainable energy transition. Just when the Arab region's energy transition had begun to gather momentum, the COVID-19 slowed this progress. It led to a GDP loss of estimated at $150 billion and drove millions into poverty. Fast forward 2 years, and the war on Ukraine exacerbated the Arab region's fragility even further, particularly in terms of energy and food security, and for the vulnerable and least protected who continue to suffer disproportionately. Not surprisingly, many governments in the region, especially net energy importing countries, put short-term energy security ahead of sustainability. This crisis forced public debt in the Arab region to climb to a historic high of $1.4 trillion, roughly 60% of GDP. The region's share of the IMF SDRs provided some cushion, but at only 5% of the global share, it fell significantly short of what is needed. Increasingly, it is becoming clearer that cooperation amongst the Global South is now even more pertinent and more necessary for mobilizing financing and sharing solutions and resources. To that end, we in ESCWA have partnered with member states, development agencies, and the private sector to optimize synergy, coherence, and cooperation in promoting sustainable energy transition as part of our larger collective objective of achieving SDGs and Agenda 2030, and ensuring that no one is left behind in the process. With Swedish support, we have been promoting and implementing solar energy field projects with the aim of helping reduce the cost of energy while developing skills and knowledge relating to income generating activities among the beneficiaries and supporting entrepreneurial development while advancing women's empowerment. Similar partnership is also ongoing with the Islamic Development Bank and the Sustainable Energy for All through the Middle East Hub platform for cooperation and mobilizing partnerships. Most of our effort here is focused on advising Arab countries on available instruments for financing sustainable energy transition and building the capacity of member states to secure funding for upscaling energy efficiency, tracking and monitoring SDG 7, as well as integrating the implementation of related energy projects, energy efficiency projects, and programs into national development plans. This has led to the launch of a toolkit that provides financing instruments for building energy efficiency, which can be used to guide the development of specific instruments in the Arab region. Ladies and gentlemen, the Arab region has a significant role to play in global efforts toward a just and inclusive energy transition, particularly because it is characterized by both energy exporting high-income countries and low middle-income countries with growing debt, as well as least developing countries, all of whom are importing energy at increasingly high costs to their fiscal budget and to their indebtedness. This variety of countries provides a scope for regional and global collaboration. To facilitate this cooperation, we have launched a climate SDG debt swap donor nexus. It's a mouthful, I know. It's a climate SDG debt swap donor nexus initiative, an innovative financing mechanism to deliver on the SDGs and the Paris Agreement commitments and advance North-South and Triangle cooperation. Furthermore, we are leveraging our crucial role as an enabler, and we will be hosting after tomorrow, on the 15th of September, an Arab regional forum to explore the climate finance needs of Arab states. The forum is designed to facilitate engagement with a broad set of stakeholders, identify synergies and entry points for climate finance to support acceleration of access to clean energy and connect institutional investors, private sector financiers, and development partners with governments. I wish us all fruitful discussion in our meetings, in our deliberation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Tabit. I really appreciate your getting up earlier. I know it's very early in Beirut. And thank you so much. You give a very good examples how in Arabic region, so you're working on climate financing and also the cooperation of global South, and also emphasize the North, South and the triangular cooperation to support energy transition. That's exactly what we want to hear from more about how the regional cooperation will address this through South-South cooperation to address energy transition, especially how to get finance to support this energy transition. Thank you so much for this. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Oleg from ECE on behalf of the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Economic and Social Commission for Europe, Mr. Dmitry Maryasin. Oleg, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Peng. I will deliver the opening statement on behalf of Mr. Dmitry Maryasin, Deputy Executive Secretary of UNECE. Dear Mr. Kaveh Zahedi and Mr. Munir Tabet, my fellow Deputy Executive Secretaries from ESCAP and ESCWA, dear colleagues, dear participants of the Global South-South Development Expo 2022. I am pleased to say a few words at the opening of this very important session on sustainable energy transition. In the world we live these days, the issue of access to affordable and modern energy is literally on top of the agenda of all countries, not only in the global South, but also in the developed countries in Europe, North America, and other parts of the world. Specifics may be different, but the main question remains: how do we solve the immediate challenges of availability of sufficient energy resources and remain on track for a longer-term goal of mitigating climate change and achieving targets of SDG 7? The response is not straightforward. You are probably aware that many countries are now looking at options that just a year ago would probably look inconceivable, such as putting into operation coal-fired power plants that were decommissioned earlier. The use of nuclear power, while not accepted by all countries, is also on the rise as a way to assure stable and secure energy supply and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Cooperation on energy issues among the three sister regional commissions that co-organized this session, ECE, ESCAP, and ESCWA, has a long and productive history. The circumstances and needs of countries in the three regions may be significantly different, but exchange of ideas, knowledge, expertise, and best practices has proved valuable for all, and we hope to continue this trend. One example of ECE work in this area is implementation of a recently completed project, Global Initiative Towards Post-COVID-19 Resurgence of the MSME Sector. Under this project, guidelines and best practices were developed for micro, small, and medium enterprises, that's what MSMEs stand for, in two areas: resiliency and progress towards a circular economy in sustainable resource management and critical raw material supply chain solutions, and in delivering energy efficient products and services and providing renewable energy equipment. The important feature of this work was developing nationally customized guidelines and best practices based on the regional report and taking national conditions into account. More than that, officials and experts from different countries had an opportunity to learn directly from each other at the training workshops and seminars that were organized. For me, this is what South-South cooperation means in practice. South-South and in fact global cooperation is needed to produce a sustainable critical raw materials dashboard to inform policymakers and civil society and provide guidelines for the involvement of MSMEs and other stakeholders in the critical raw material supply chain. The UNECE is developing the United Nations Resource Management System, or UNRMS. The system has been pilot tested for CRM applications under this and another project, and these projects looked into implementing a global framework for CRM supply, increasing the circularity in the use of critical raw materials, and increasing the social contract on sustainability. UNECE is pleased to be the implementing partner of a recently started project strengthening energy policies of countries with special needs to build back better from COVID-19, which is led by ESCAP. ESCAP has extensive and valuable experience in developing SDG 7 roadmaps. This project will help share this knowledge with several more countries that are member states of both ECE and ESCAP. In today's world, achieving SDG 7 becomes ever more important. Our three commissions are working on making this possible through concerted efforts to help their member states and to cooperate in a way that solutions developed in one or several countries become known and available for scaling up in other countries and regions. I wish you a productive session and look forward to our cooperation in sustainable energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleg, to deliver this opening statement on behalf of the Deputy Executive Secretary of UNECE. I think you correctly mentioned about this joint effort by the regional commissions, especially we are in a different geographic coverage. I think that's also provide us the advantage to work together among the developing countries and also between developing country and developed country to implement this SDG 7 and also to achieve the 2030 agenda. So thank you so much for this opening statement, and also we recognize our collaboration among the regional commissions is one of the good examples, especially to across different regions to share good practices. So now I would like to move to the next session. It's a panel discussion. We'll focus on challenges for sustainable energy transition and the opportunities through South-South cooperation. Will be moderated by Oleg. So I give the floor to Oleg. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Hongpeng. We open the panel discussion for this session, and I would like to introduce our distinguished speakers, panelists, before I will start asking them questions that are in the concept note of this session. So today we have with us Ms. Margarita Arabidze, Head of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Policy and Sustainable Development Department, Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia, Ms. Shada El Sharif, Investment Priority Lead, Prime Minister's Delivery Unit in Jordan, Mr. Hussein Mogaibel, Global Lead Energy Specialist, Economic and Social Infrastructure Department at the Islamic Development Bank, Ms. Tatiana Vedinova, President of the Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Development in Kyrgyzstan, and Mr. Vitaly Becker, Senior Energy Expert at UNECE and ESCAP, who is here at the podium. And Mr. Hongpeng Liu is also with us. He is the Director of Energy Division at ESCAP. So with this little introduction, I would like to start with some questions, and we'll probably go in this order. So the first set of questions, and our panelists are welcome to answer them in any order or as they wish. What are the challenges encountered and practical solutions identified during the COVID-19 pandemic that can be used widely in countries of the Global South with respect to improving energy efficiency and increasing the share of renewable energy? How have countries managed to align the economic recovery process with sustainable development, particularly by tapping into the economic growth and job creation potential of sustainable energy? And what role for South-South cooperation exists giving the potential to build on available expertise with the sub-region or sub-regions to overcome these challenges and exchange experience in solutions that can be utilized and scale up. And I would like Margarita Arabidze from Georgia to start this panel discussion. Margarita, please.
Thank you, Oleg, and good morning, everyone. And thank you very much, and for very interesting and forum and meetings. And first of all, let me thank all 3 United Nations Economic Commissions for inviting me to this side event with the Global South-South and Development Expo in 2020 to 2022. Indeed, the chosen subject of the panel is very crucial and for every country on the global and currently, since existing challenges are already and we will affect and each and then everyone. Regarding to the Georgia in late in 2020, UNESCO's published a report on energy transition pathway and for 2030 agenda. SDG 7 roadmap for Georgia. This wasn't first of such kind report and prepared and for Georgia, and we are much appreciated and for the being on one of the piloting countries. Work on the report and started and before in pandemic, but and later, and it wasn't clear that in COVID-19 and pandemic will have a serious impact on our life and of course and on sustainable energy and development. Trust and COVID-19 impact and was added as well. The next step analysis also shows that as true and the proposed and improvement in area and Georgia's energy security can be and further and strengthened and 3 measures and will reduce and its resilience of the natural gas imports and the liberalized cost of electricity from renewable power technologies has experiences and steep and decline, becoming economically and more competitive than the conventional and fossil fuel and based technologies. Georgia may leverage its abundant and renewable energy potential and specifically in hydropower to provide and clean electricity and for its neighboring countries. Georgia and emissions and trajectory in the current and policy and scenarios and appear and promising and also when they fall to achieve in the unconditional and NDC targets by a small margin. Nevertheless, and adoption and of the energy efficiency measures and increasing and the renewable power share and will not only increasing and renewable energy share in total final energy consumption, but also in reducing emissions and close the level need to achieving the conditional and NDC targets. Indirectly, Georgia would strengthen its energy security and by reducing natural gas imports. Going behind is the stipulated targets, and Georgia may leverage in huge and renewable energy sources for clean electricity exports. It's very important in part. Further reduction of the Georgia's emissions is not only feasible, it will also benefits and from the reduction of its energy intensity beyond the SDG targets. For example, the most ambitious scenarios proposed by the next step shows that's close to 38% in reduction compared to the Bowen scenarios can be achieving. Finally, as the energy transition pathway presented in this SDG 7 roadmap and will support and rebuilding and better after the COVID-19 and pandemic. The proposed energy transition presents opportunities for reducing economic risk, both for public and private investment, and identifies areas and for financial savings in the energy sectors that can support and recovery on the other and critical subjects and critical sector for as and health and sector. Speaking about another and very important report, and namely and the guidance, the energy and best and practices and micro and small and medium and enterprises in Georgia in delivering energy efficiency products and in providing and renewable energy equipment, which wasn't developed with the support by UNICE and give and perspective from the from COVID-19 impact and way and forward. Based on the analysis, it's clear that all businesses experiences and decrease in demand and revenue due to lockdown, and since and business that relies on their direct and sales and to customers and encountered and significant and decrease in revenues and due to the closer and businesses activities during the lockdown period. Moreover, and after in lockdown, indeed, and customer flow to retailers and had reduced them to the safety and concerns of the population. Closed borders and reduced the numbers of tourists and have predominantly affected and hospitality industry and their and suppliers and the consumer sector also and and reducing residential sales and to foreigners and availability on new and hotels and construction and so on. Also shifting the consumption and behavior and the local and consumers habits and having shifted and cheaper and products and increasing and spending on the basic and needs. Many are foreign consumers reduced or cancelled and delayed their and orders, while others had to request and discount due to exchange and rate and fluctuation in their own countries. Since all countries with suppliers outside in Georgia are in foreign currency and the companies and face an increase of real and material input and cost due to the exchange and rate and fluctuations and others. Regarding for the recommendation and based on the through analysis and government and should first is prepare the clear guidelines for companies on the available support and provided such as and how to access and various financial instruments, who to contact and for the questions and etc. And second is and government should introduce a temporary tax and why this for the micro, small and medium-sized enterprises as a two-fee in business and from the any tax and obligation for a temporary period, and government and should include renewable energy and energy efficiency enterprises in the existing national and programs to the support and SMEs and through grants and loans and loan guarantees. The government should support the establishment on energy efficiency and renewable energy and SMEs and clusters and others. Regarding to the recommendations to the micro and small and medium-sized enterprises and working in the renewable energy and energy efficiency field, it's clear and that SMEs should explore and start immediately in process of association and clustering in order to increase and competitiveness and become more attractive for the end users of energy efficiency and renewable energy products and services, developing society and oriented in financial strategy for the crisis and post-crisis and periods and the guarantees and long-term and sustainability of the business and operation. This wasn't briefly and from my side on the challenges and opportunities for sustainable energy transition for Georgia. Hope and this wasn't very insightful information and for you. Thank you again and thank you for your kind cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Margarita. It was quite interesting, the experience of Georgia, both in developing the SDG 7 roadmap, and we hope that this work will continue in terms of now implementing it. And in terms of experience during and post-COVID-19 crisis, the challenges are quite clear. The ways to overcome them, you presented some of them, and we hope, well, we know some of them did work and some of them continue to be working. And in the new situation, some of it actually could still be helpful for MSMEs, and the role of government in promoting their work, particularly in energy efficiency and renewable energy, is absolutely critical. Thank you again, Margarita. I will now give the floor to Ms. Shada El Sharif, Investment Priority Lead in Prime Minister's Delivery Unit in Jordan. Apologies. Ms. El Sharif, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Oleg, and the entire organizers for putting on this important event and for inviting me to join you this morning or afternoon for our colleagues currently in Thailand. So allow me to share quickly with you our experience in Jordan. As Mr. Tabet alluded, obviously the region contains both energy importing and exporting countries. Jordan falls within the former group, importing around 89% of its energy as of 2020. And within the COVID-19 pandemic, it was clear the importance of accelerating the energy security priority for the country. But at the same time, there were some unanticipated opportunities that emerged during the crisis, with some practices resulting actually in energy efficiency in certain sectors, such as the reduced dependency on individual modes of transportation, of course, by necessity, and then, of course, the transitioning to remote work, the role of renewable power actually in Jordan had already contributed about 29% of our electricity mix, so even exceeding targets set out in previous energy strategies, as Jordan was already an early mover in the region of transitioning towards clean energy. And that kind of local energy source at the end of the day was very positive in supporting the country during the time when international supply chains were interrupted. Of course, Jordan had recently issued its VNR, Voluntary National Review, to the UN, and that included a stocktake of progress on relevant SDGs, including SDG 7. And in that regard, it's important to note that Jordan's water and energy sectors are inextricably linked. The water pumping actually takes up about 15% of power needs in Jordan. And so with the increased need for water during COVID, this also translated to an increased energy use. And it did also delay a number of capital expenditure projects. Jordan had already other challenges in the energy sector even prior to COVID, related to grid capacity and the financial sustainability of the sector. However, suffice to say that measures to address these challenges were already in play at the time. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic, in a sense, accelerated a lot of these efforts that were needed to improve the sustainability of the energy sector. And so I would like to share with you the key, let's say, pillars of Jordan's energy strategy that came out for the years 2020 to 2030, and that took into account the evolving COVID situation. So self-sufficiency was the scenario chosen for Jordan. It weighed different scenarios, but that was the one found to be the most strategic for the country for that time frame. And what that means in reality is diversification as a strategic driver, so that Jordan is not dependent on a single source of energy, but diversifying. In this sense, we're talking specifically about natural gas and renewable energy, but also increasing the share of local resources by 2030 to reach around 48.5%. Energy efficiency also had a target of 9% by 2030. And this is building on a previously done effort of preparing NEAPs, or the National Energy Action Plan. Jordan is in the process of updating the NEAP for the third time. And of course, regional interconnection forms an important aspect of Jordan's energy project. And as I mentioned, the financial sustainability of the sector is a core aspect of the energy strategy. Now, this is what's been happening in the energy policy making front, but complementary to this, I think, is the policy development work that was going on under the climate change and green economy agenda. Again, the country had a advanced base in this regard, and I actually recall now attending the launch of Jordan's Green Growth National Action Plans on Zoom during COVID by the Minister of Environment at the time. And this builds on the National Green Growth Plan that was launched and was one of the first in the region actually in 2017. And I share these examples because I think Jordan's story is heavy with examples of policy development that I think it would be interesting to share with countries from a South-South perspective. So the Green Growth Action Plan had a module for each of our 6 key sectors. Energy was one of them. And it focused both on policy and investment projects. Complementary to this, I think COP26 and the lead up to COP26 also built the momentum of Jordan's accelerated climate actions. So Jordan submitted its updated NDCs before Glasgow and raised its ambition. I mean, obviously Jordan is not a major GHG emitting country, but yet still raised its ambition from 14% to 31% reduction. With obviously the caveat that 26% of this is conditional on international support. So post-COVID recovery plans, if I take you now to the broader economic outlook, we had 2 frameworks that guided Jordan's economic recovery. There was a short-term framework that came out shortly after COVID, let's say, or after the height of COVID, about a year ago, and that's called the Government's Economic Priorities Program. And that one really focused on the short-term, highly strategic issues. And a lot of the people in the environmental circles and the low carbon transition were concerned that there wasn't much of a focus on the other plans I had mentioned to you. But as Mr. Thabit said, I think countries were trying to grapple with the urgent situations. And so one of the important outcomes that came out of that plan is Jordan's restructuring of its electricity tariff back in April, with the aim of reducing the burden on vulnerable and low-income groups and better distributing the load of the energy cost across the population and across the right, let's say, segments in society. And so this has had the anticipated and desired impact. But what I would like to share with you, the most, I would say, exciting development really on the economic policy front for Jordan was the launch of an economic modernization vision in June. This was a national effort, and this is where Jordan once again moved out from the short-term planning into the longer-term time frame. And this vision is a guiding document for the entire country for 2033. I had the pleasure to be part of that process and specifically contributing to one of the 8 growth drivers, which is the green economy growth driver. And so here we see all of these other pieces that I mentioned to you coming together. And so I think this is a key driver for any country, is really to have an overarching vision on the longer term, highlighting the importance of energy efficiency, sustainability, security, reliability. And so this chapter, if you open it, will have a lot on circular economy, on electric mobility. And the key thing to note in this policy document, which is different from others, is its assumption that delivery is going to be based on partnerships and investments from the private sector. This is not a purely government-owned plan. This is the government extending its hand in partnership to the private sector, to non-governmental organizations, to deliver a very ambitious target of $41 billion in investment by 2030 and 1 million jobs. And it is important to note that Jordan sees that 2 of those growth drivers are the green economy and sustainable resources. And so we see this now shift really of this green agenda into the center of government planning tools. This is supported actually by a number of regulatory frameworks that are favorable, be it the renewable energy efficiency law, the climate change bylaw, the PPP law, the solid waste management framework law, but also actual projects on the ground that are operating in all the 6 sectors that I mentioned: water, energy, agriculture, tourism, transport, and waste. And of course, access to finance is a key challenge, but also an area where progress has been made. There's the, as mentioned, the energy efficiency tool that has been developed with Expo. Prior to this, the central bank had offered subsidies for renewable energy projects. The Jordan's Renewable Energy Efficiency Fund has already funded thousands of institutions, homes, schools, hospitals, hotels with these systems, and only expanding now its programs. And recently, through a collaboration with the EBRD and the Green Climate Fund, a green economy financing facility was launched in Jordan, also working with microfinance institutions and the microfund for women. I will close with just a few points on South-South cooperation, because Oleg, you mentioned this point. So I would say, to summarize, there's room to exchange policy frameworks, but I think those really set the scene for national development efforts. The regional interconnection projects remain very, I think, strategic for Jordan and countries of the region. They both improve grid stability and the ability of countries to expand renewable energy. But then also the water, energy, food nexus concept, which has been, I think, very much studied and supported by organizations like Expo, and which are rising now in relevance, where countries such as Jordan, with space to produce clean energy, can collaborate with countries with more abundant water resources to complement one another and strengthen each other's security. And of course, exchanges on successful projects that are operating on the ground. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. El Sharif. You have raised, I mean, that's such a rich presentation. Not possible to summarize it in a few words, but I will just pick on some of it. You mentioned water, energy, food nexus. This is one of the most important issues. You mentioned green modernization plan in Jordan. We hope that goes ahead and that gets implemented. You also mentioned financing, and I'm happy now to give the floor to the colleague from the Islamic Development Bank, from an international financial institution, because, well, financing is the key. We know that. How do we get it for sustainable energy transition? So now, Ms. Hussein Mogaibel, please, the floor is yours, and tell us how can we do what we need to do, what is needed in terms of investments and financing for sustainable energy transition, and what is the role of specifically of the Islamic Development Bank in this? Please.
Thank you, Oleg. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting Islamic Development Bank to this very important topic, which is one of the high priority by the Islamic Development Bank as a South-South institutions of 57 member countries. South-South cooperation is one of the priority and one of the areas that the bank has looked a long time ago, and we see the high potential and increasing this cooperation. Related to the energy field, in fact, as you know, there are diversified expertise, skills, and knowledge in the countries of the global south, and in the field of renewable energy, in the field of energy efficiency. Some countries are lagging behind, and they need the help and the support, while others they have this expertise. One of the main areas that's in the energy transition related to the development of the energy sector policies and strategies in some countries, and related to the energy transition, and how also to implement this, and this needs some right skills, expertise, capacities that might not be available in some countries. So the support of other countries is needed. This shortage could be addressed through technical support, financial support. We will come to that. But another also important dimension in the energy transition challenges is related to the involvement of the private sector. As you know, that the sector is very high demanding in terms of investments, and there is a need to have the proper regulations, policies that will allow and track the foreign investment and the private sector. Without these regulations, foreign investment will not come, and so the cooperation, the South-South cooperation, is needed to help the countries that lack the proper investment environment, and by helping them and promote proper regulations, strategies, and also very important to prepare bankable projects that will promote the private sector to come and invest in the country. We cannot forget also technology as one of the important dimensions related to the energy transition. And also there are some advanced countries that could help on that. Coming to the financing modalities, develop new financing mechanism. Also, the experience of issuing green bonds, as the bank has had the experience on that, and also some countries and the global south, they have this experience that could be shared to help other countries to mobilize the investment and resources, in addition to the development of the regulations related to the attracting the private sector and investment in the country. In fact, there are large number of cooperation areas and there is high potential for increasing this cooperation. And the bank, as we think that the South-South cooperation has proven to be very effective as a development tool to mitigate the impact of crisis, and also to develop and help in the sustainable development future. The bank, we have reverse linkage modality that has three main players. There is a service provider, one of the countries that have a high expertise and willing to help, and there is a second player, which is the service recipient, and the bank is playing the moderator role in linking these countries. And we started by analyzing the strength, skills, capacity available in the global south, and try to identify the gaps and the needed country in this specific area. And the bank is playing the moderator role, and the bank also covers the costs related to the logistics, conducting training programs, traveling, printing materials, accommodation, helps to promote and help other countries, and linking the service provider to the needed country. The mandate of this reverse linkage modality is not limited to providing training, also could benefits the countries in development of regulations, policies, other activities, preparing bankable projects. So we are working now, for example, in a program called Renewable Energy Cooperation Program in Africa. It's at early stage. It's 1 billion program. We are targeting to have 100 million for preparing projects for private sector investment. So this is being developed and will be launched soon. These areas, I think it's very important topic, and we look forward to cooperate and help in developing this South-South cooperation in energy transition and in other fields also. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hussein. Financing is extremely important. And as you said, some countries are ahead of others in terms of having policies and legislation that essentially foster financing and promote it and make it available, make it possible, and some lag behind. So using experience of other countries might be quite helpful. and we appreciate the work that Islamic Development Bank does in this area. We have now heard quite interesting points from representatives of the governments of two countries in two regions, from Georgia and Jordan. We have heard the points from an international financial institution. I would like to now give the floor to Ms. Tatiana Vedinova, who represents a civil society organization that works and has deep expertise in energy efficiency and renewable energy, and present her views on what the situation is and can be in Kyrgyzstan, and what both the government and the civil society, what role they can play in their country. Tatiana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Oleg. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you
Okay, great.
perfectly. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, drawing up on everything that the previous esteemed colleagues have said, all these points were valid as well for Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan has benefited from two projects. First, this is UNECE guidelines and best practices for enterprises working in renewable energy and energy efficiency. And second is the UNESCO SDG 7 roadmap. So I'll be speaking about two aspects of the renewable energy market development. First, some basic information. Kyrgyzstan is a small country. We border with Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and China. So a lot of our supply for renewable energy comes from China, not surprisingly. Because of the prices and because of the easier logistics, what happened during the COVID crisis is that our government has closed, it's imposed a lockdown even before we had any cases of COVID, and we stayed under lockdown for 3 months. That has virtually exhausted the resources of all enterprises, well, small, medium, and micro enterprises in particular. Women were affected the hardest, first because they were not able to work at home due to closed schools, and the highest rate of actually letting the employees go, the employees that were let go were women in the sector of renewable energy and energy efficiency. So just to say how much this sector contributes to GDP, the sector of small and medium-sized enterprises amounts to about 40% of our GDP. So it's extremely important that this sector should flourish. And unfortunately, in 2020, 2021, it took a deep dive, resulting in GDP decrease of about 10% overall in 2020. So what happened then was we also had some political instability that resulted in overturn of power in the end of 2020. And then we had some deep political reforms in 2021, which were also not really conducive to any kind of fast improvement in energy situation or in the situation of enterprises, as the government was busy with other things. The hardest hit for enterprises was from the supply chains. First of all, of course, the lockdown, and then after the lockdown is that all the supply chains were virtually, well, destroyed. It was impossible to actually foresee or predict how long the shipments would take from China or from other normal logistics. So this had a really high impact. So how our enterprises have responded? First of all, of course, during the lockdown, they went to remote work from home. They had to cut some employees. These were women mostly. And the decrease of income was about 50% for all of them. The government has provided some anti-crisis measures, such as, for example, extension of reporting deadlines, eliminating penalties for non-payment of taxes, postpone payment of taxes, and suspension of inspection by state regulatory bodies, as well as some financial resources were diverted to help the enterprises. However, the problem was that with the enterprises we have surveyed, virtually none of them have heard of any resources that government has directed to help them. So basically, there is no connection between this type of businesses and the government. Therefore, one of our recommendations that we provided to the micro, small, and medium enterprises is actually to cooperate together, to build associations, to create to create levers that they could actually reach the government and provide them with their views on what kind of measures they need, just to create the connection. The same with the government. We have recommended that the guidelines on actually how to access any kind of help, not only governmental, but from international organizations, should be really made clear electronically or otherwise through SME to enterprises for them to be actually working. Another thing that I wanted to mention, of course, is that talking about women who took the hardest hit, we also have recommended the government to concentrate on creating environment for creation of startups, especially women startups, specifically in renewable energy and energy efficiency. And I hope that will be taken up. So these are, of course, we had many more recommendations, but I'd like to go to the energy sector now, from more of the side on how the market is working at the moment and what can be done. At the moment, we have not yet reached the point of having an environment that is conducive to renewable energy investments. And this is mostly due, partly due to the prices that we have. The energy prices for households is about 1 US cent per kilowatt hour. For businesses, is 3 US cent per kilowatt hours. And the feed-in tariff that is used to stimulate renewable energy production is about 4 US cents, which is basically not enough in our conditions where we have no set strategy for green energy sector development. We have no comprehensive rules of the game, no PPA at the moment because it was actually taken off the law. No indexation to other currencies, and most of our equipment is imported. So at the moment, I would say that we are not quite ready for investment, but the good point is that there is a lot of work done around creating a strategy or shaping a strategy for the Kyrgyz Republic to actually understand to be able to set the goals in renewable energy and green development. One of the achievement was development of SDG 7 roadmap for the Kyrgyz Republic that was supported by UNESCAP, and this has given the Ministry of Energy and the government a sort of a blueprint, not only the general words like we should go green, we should develop this and that, but there were actually good recommendations. Of course, it's quite clear that if we are under business as usual scenario or current policy scenario, so far we are not reaching SDG 7, and measures are recommended to do that. And first of all, two biggest problems that we face here is clean cooking and clean heating. So these were the two priority areas together with transport, which is actually one of the most polluting, one of the largest CO2 emitters in Kyrgyz Republic. So these three largest sectors were recommended by SDG 7 roadmap to be looked at and to improved by government of the Kyrgyz Republic. And of course, energy efficiency measures should be applied throughout the sector as well. What I wanted to say, how we can cooperate South-South. Of course, the expertise exchange is great and it's very much appreciated. And through all of the projects that I was talking about, main experts and lead experts were often from Asia as well. So this is already a cooperation. And talking about our biggest problem during COVID and later was, as I said, the supply chain. So, and one of the opportunities also has been created in this area, and this is actually looking for new partners in different countries. So not only importing, let's say, from China, but starting to import from other countries of the region. Many of the companies have been forced to do that, and some opportunities came out of it. For example, one of the companies we have looked into is a case study, and they were looking for a new partner to import batteries, solar batteries. Not only solar, but any kind of batteries. And they have found a producer who has been offering not only batteries, but also solar systems. So this company has decided to include solar equipment into their range of products that they're offering to customers. And since then, they have been successfully increasing their business in this area. So this is one of the good examples. So, so new suppliers and, of course, experience exchange would be great between the southern countries. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. And I think you made a very good point about the role that MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises can and should play, and that their role is somewhat underappreciated in in some countries, unfortunately. The work that you have been doing, apologies, and that is done in Kyrgyzstan is quite important. I have water in a moment. Apologies. It's okay. I will now give the floor to Vitaly Baker, senior energy expert who has been working as a consultant for both ESCAP and UNECE. For ESCAP on the SDG 7 roadmaps and next step tool, for ECE on the guidelines and best practices for MSMEs in energy efficiency and renewable energy. So without further ado, Vitaly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure for me to make a speech here. So, as it was mentioned by the previous speakers, COVID-19 made a big impact on the whole infrastructure and the energy issue as well. And on behalf of the UNECE, last year we made a research, a regional one. It was called Guidelines and Best Practices for Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises in Delivering Energy-Efficient Products and Providing Equipment for Renewable Energy. So part of this, of the conclusions of this report were already highlighted by my colleagues before. So we can agree, all of us, that COVID-19 made a great impact on the all functionality for the medium and small enterprises all over the region. So the guidelines and best practices which were prepared by our team also show that show this impact in figures, and also the main focus of the work was not only to to show the fact that COVID-19 impacted on the income of the enterprises, but also give them some solutions and ideas how to improve the functionality, how to still maintain the employees on place, and how to adapt to new reality, and what to do with the production. So we can say that there are several main aspects of the publication that was made. It's about the access of the business environment for the MSMEs in the clean energy phase, then presents examples of best practices in energy efficiency and renewable energy fields related to crisis response and post-COVID recovery. So this case study section were really hardly picked by our experts, and also we were trying to select the best examples how companies can adapt and how they can manage the changes that they faced on during the COVID-19. Also, we prepared some practical measures to help businesses access markets, financing, and advanced technologies, even in these tight times. Also provides recommendations for policies guidelines to help countries to move beyond the crisis. I also would like to highlight several recommendations that were prepared by our team for this type of MSMEs in the region. So mainly it is focused on the supporting visibility of the recovery actions for the existing and new investors and clients. So sure the companies should manage the visibility that they are doing something to really withstand the pandemic story, and to improve the possibilities of the companies. Also put more attention for the social media activity and move to online towards online and support the clients with the online services. Getting additional funding by submitting the proposals of the company's development according to the changed requirements in the markets and the products which company produced before, or they can adapt their manufacturing facilities to shift their production to another possibilities. Getting access to the easy markets and also maybe shift the production line from the high standards to the more general use for the wider range of consumers. Embrace new technologies while relying on the existing human resources. It's also very important to maintain the amount of employees which company was working before, and also to support the employees to overcome the problems which they were faced on the personal level as well during the pandemic effects. Introducing COVID-19 protection products and consultancy services. So this part was really highly appreciated by the companies, and they were trying to shift their production lines from the general productivity to the specific COVID-19 protection products. And also we have several good examples of the companies which done it and had good profit. And for sure conduct and participate in a number of online trainings. And we also can see that during last years there was a big global shift towards the online educational trainings and promotion. As well as the increase in the online sales as well. So the new project which UNEC joined pretty recently is the work with the National Expert SDG Tool for Energy Planning, shortly called Next Step. This is the activity which was promoted by the SCAP in the previous years, and this is the tool which is focused on the national level development of SDG 7 roadmaps, which are focused on the sustainable energy development of the cities and of the on the national level of the countries. So that the tool is focused for the energy planning and consists of several key pillars like energy modeling, which help to estimate the difference of energy resources and identify the technological inventions needed to achieve those shares. The economical analysis to identify the economical feasible options for and the invest and interventions. And also the tool allows to conduct the scenario analysis to determine the feasible implementation of the national context according to the requirements of the SDG 7 sustainable development. This tool was during last year were mostly focused on the Southeast Asia region, and also was implemented in a number of countries, and some of them already had the national energy planning document prepared. And also since the 2022, so since this year, UNEC started to join the dissemination of the Next Step tool for the countries of Armenia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. So also as a consultant, I will support this work during the coming years, and we really much welcome all other countries which will be interested to work with this. Okay, I think I completed the show, the small presentation. Thank you, colleagues. I would give the floor.
Thank you, Vitaly. Indeed, these three countries that are member states of both ECE and ESCAP will join this Next Step tool and will work on the SDG 7 roadmaps for them. We also have, as Margalita and Tatiana said, these roadmaps developed for Georgia and Kyrgyzstan. Before I give the floor back to Khonpeng for some closing remarks and wrap up, I would like to thank my colleagues from ESCAP and ESCWA, Michael Williamson and Radia Sidawi, for all the help and for all the good cooperation that we had in organizing this workshop. And maybe Radia could say a few words on this. Radia, very nice to see you. And Radia, please. No sound for some reason. Let's see if we can fix it. Raya, your microphone seems to be on.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
and can
we can hear you now.
Yes,
Thank
perfect. Yeah, perfect. Sorry for the technology, and it shows that we need to also collaborate on the technology transfer and knowledge sharing. And I think this is all about the purpose of this side event, that once again prove the usefulness, but also the effectiveness of collaboration between the three regional commissions and the added value of the reverse knowledge as highlighted by my colleague from the ISDB. I just want to indicate to where we were listening to the welcoming remarks from the regional commissions, but also from the member states from both regions, is to see how really the consecutive crisis that we have call more for collaboration and social collaboration, obviously. And we call for the Islamic Development and other financial institutions to support in really addressing this crisis and help to really change the business model in a way that help to basically address the most vulnerable, but also enable the just inclusive energy transition. Thank you very much, Oleg, for leading this side event. Thanks, Hongpen, also, and my colleagues to both regional commissions. Over to you, Oleg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Radia. Very encouraging. And I would like to thank all the panelists for this very fruitful discussion, the presentations they made. We haven't had any questions from the chat, which probably means everything was absolutely clear. But I now give the floor back to Mr. Hongpeng Liu for some closing remarks. Hongpeng, please.
Thank you, Oleg. Thank you, Radia, joining us online. Thank you for all the panelists. I think you give a very good, you share very good examples and your views about the South-South cooperation for energy transition. I'm very glad to see the work you have done. For example, the guidelines developed with the support from ECE and the SDG 7 roadmap developed in the countries with the support from ESCAP, and also from Jordan, your work supported by ISDB and also by our colleague from ESCA. I really see this is really a good platform to share this kind of good practices and also to learn each other. If I can simply just summarize what we discussed, because that's too much information, I can't just finish in just a few minutes, but I want to emphasize the first one we heard about how important the regulations and the policies development to support energy transition. Because when we talk about energy transition, that means from the existing energy system to transit to the new energy system. What is the new energy system? It's really renewable, clean, and decentralized, decarbonized. So this is the revolution change from the existing energy system to the new energy system. That's exactly we need the policies, we need the regulations to support. And secondly, I see the development of the tools. When you do this energy transition, you really need the tools to support your energy transition from the technology-wise, from the laws and the regulations, which also focus on different technologies for renewable energy, for energy transition, for low carbon development. All this kind of technology development, you need these kind of tools. And finally, you need investment, you need finance. As our colleague from ISDB mentioned, all this transition, you need the support from those international financing institutions, you from the commercial banks. In particular, you need to involve the private sector. That's most important. The private sector, they have money, they have technology, they have actually the market. So I really think involve the private sector is one of the factors to achieve energy transition. Probably this is very important, and also we have to keep in mind. I also see the good examples to involve the small and medium-sized enterprises. A lot of large enterprises, they have their own capacity. They can do energy transition. But the most difficult part is the small and the medium-sized enterprises. They want to do this, but they don't have the technology, they don't have money. So that's really, we have to find what is the best way through this kind of cooperation, South-South cooperation, to share good examples, good practices, to involve the private sector, to support SMEs, to transfer from the current energy dependent on fossil fuels to renewable energy and the clean energy. So that's really, I think the discussion gave good examples. And also I see the potential for South-South cooperation, like from our panelists from Central Asia, from Caucasus region, from Arabic, from also this region. So the Asia Pacific side, I really see the potential for South-South cooperation, all the developing countries to work together, and also with the support from North, those developer countries. So the South-South, South-North, and the triangular cooperation will be a key and also very important to energy access. So I thank you all for all the panelists to share about your views and your experiences. And also I want to thank all the audience in the room. You will see we have a full room here in the UNCC. And thank you very much for joining us. And look forward to continue this collaboration with the ECE and the ESCWA and other regional commissions to support energy transition. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peng. It was a very good set of closing remarks. I see now one question in the chat. Maybe we can have really 2 minutes. The question is addressed to Hussein Mogaibel. A participant from Sudan is asking if you can elaborate a bit on increase of support for pre-project activities for large energy projects. Hussein, maybe you can comment in like 1 minute.
Yeah, you see, this is a very valid point related to the bankable, preparing a bankable projects for attracting the private sector. This is one of the obstacles that you will find in many countries, that the funding agencies or the MDBs will not find ready projects to finance. So they have to help the countries in terms of how to prepare these projects, how to make it bankable for the private sector even. So, and this is one of the areas that technical assistance and helping the countries, even through the South-South cooperation or even the North-South cooperation, the countries or the entities that have the expertise to put the regulations and prepare bankable projects for those countries that will attract the private sector. And this is the key issues that address this question from our colleagues in Sudan. Maybe it's a private sector question, or even the government's question that will need the help to prepare the bankable projects. So this is part of our role, part of MDB role, part of it's responsibility often from the service providers, those countries that have the expertise to cooperate with the MDBs as a moderator to help those countries that need this shortage and to prepare the bankable projects and pave the investment environment for attracting the private sector. Over.
Thank you very much, Hussein. Yeah, thank you. I think now we can close the session. Many thanks to everybody who participated in this room in person and those online. And again, we hope this cooperation will continue for many, many years. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.